Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this time the GSA Celeste Any Percent League. Today we are featuring Scrublord and Msushi in what's sure to be a great matchup. Scrublord and Msushi are both neck and neck in the standings. Msushi currently in 6th, and Scrublord currently in 9th. These are two very good players that have shown a lot of PB potential recently, so I'm excited to see what they can do. As a quick summary, the Msushi's best time in the league so far is a 28:54, and Scrublord's is a 29:35. So Msushi does have the advantage in terms of the most potential, but Scrublord has also generally been able to play closer to his own PB and therefore arguably showing more consistency. But we are already off with the prologue. Never too much to talk about here. Looks like, not sure exactly how Msushi got so far ahead of Scrublord. This, I would unironically say, is a massive prologue lead. But it will surely be wiped out probably in the first few screens of City. City being Chapter 1, of course, what we're going into right now. But first, Msushi has to do something. Not sure what he was doing there. Ooh, having to take 2 retries in this room is Scrublord. Msushi is all the way caught back up, and with a fairly significant lead, in fact. Significant as far as it goes in the first chapter, although that won't help him out. Getting that dash back on the reverse hyper is as hard as it looks. Ultimately, City is one of the most fun chapters to watch because of how dense all the technical parts of the chapter are, but it also doesn't punish very hard for mistakes. So in a race setting, this is ultimately one of the least significant parts of the run. Races are never won or lost in City, and racers are almost always within 10 seconds of each other by the end of it. That said, it really gives you an introduction to all of the crazy movement that we're going to see and a preview for how well the runners potentially are feeling in terms of the crispness of their movement today. Looked like Scrublord ended City with a 107, Msushi with a 106. Neither of them deathless, which is somewhat unusual. Overall, the chapter ones done in the league so far, 67% of them have been deathless. So it's kind of unusual to see, especially 2 very high quality runners, neither be able to pull it off in the first race. Regardless, they are on to Old Site. Making their way through the nice, pretty dream block. To be honest, I think I just said that City is one of the most fun parts to watch, but in terms of the most fun, any section with dream blocks for me, it's just so satisfying. Oh, Scrublord with a death in this first battle and chase screen, and almost getting caught again. Yeah, not an ideal start from either of the runners. Scrublord just keeps on letting battle and get way too close for comfort. Like, just look at some of the crazy movement tech that they are able to pull off in these last sections here with the Dream Block. There's just so much opportunity for creativity with the way these this game mechanic was put in place. So Msushi looking to have had a much cleaner old site, and will go into Resort with a lead, but it's not the kind of lead that we can necessarily expect to remain after Resort. Is that a 1:45? Yes, that is a very good time. Very good old site time from Sushi. The average time across all is a 1:50 in the lead, which Scrublord was over, and Msushi was 5 seconds under. So impressive stuff from him, and he is certainly off to a good start, even if the city wasn't perfect. Okay. Collecting that first strawberry is Msushi. That is an incredibly important part of the morale of the run, in my opinion. However, it does not affect in any way the speed of an any percent speedrun. It's actually one of the statistics that we're tracking in the league is how many strawberries players get. There are naturally 2 strawberries that are just in your way over the course of a run. But if your movement's a little odd, or if you die before collecting it, and it might take a while for the strawberry to collect, you won't pick up, you can not pick up either of those 2 strawberries. So what I'm interested to see is how long it'll take before, just by random chance, someone finishes a run with no strawberries at all. That would be, of course, an incredibly meaningless statistic. But isn't that what fans of sports stats really like anyway? But I digress. Msushi into the crate section. Scrublord really not too far behind him. I kind of thought that he had more of a lead than this, but they are only, maybe half of, or less than half of a big mess section apart. Really not too bad. I guess Scrublord has really got it together with this resort so far. Alright, but it's not coming up quite yet, but in a minute or so, we'll see one of the most important tricks in the game, Demo Dash. And this is a trick that historically Scrublord has struggled on mightily. In one of his first league races, he failed it 17 times in one race. So we'll see. Alright, and both of them through with the book section, going on to the towel/laundry section. Still not sure which name I prefer. And I mean, it does look like they're only washing towels, but I mean, if they don't have any guests, what else are they gonna wash? They probably don't even need to wash towels. Yeah, Scrublord really not that far behind. Anyway, so far, Msushi has a 52% success rate with Demo Dash, and Scrublord has a 16.9% success rate. We see it coming up here in a couple screens on Msushi's screen, essentially shrinking Madeline's hitbox to 4 pixels, and then sliding right through a gap of exactly 4 pixels. First try for Msushi. Now this really puts the pressure on Scrublord here. He has to get it in his first few tries, or he's going to potentially... Oh, that's not looking good. That's 2. Third try. Okay, not too bad at all. That will actually increase his success rate overall. But Msushi did get, a 5 to 10 second buffer to his lead right there. You'll see though, if there's anywhere in the game where a 5 to 10 second lead can disappear in an instant, this is certainly one of those places. This boss fight has so many incredibly long runes and complex cycles that the runner has to be aware of, that really any mistake can be far more punishing than, you know, maybe it deserves to be in a way. Not sure exactly, mistakes can be inordinately punishing in this section. But Msushi doesn't make any finishing with, was that a 424? If it was a 424, that's a very good time. And is better than his average of 434. I might have missed the actual time there. A 430 for Scrublord really isn't bad. His only deaths were those 2 to demo dash, and those were very quick deaths. Alright, so it looks like Msushi has about a 16-second lead. And really, if you're Scrublord and you haven't had the cleanest start to the game, didn't get first try demo dash, really this isn't too far to be behind. Especially with Temple and Bubs drop coming up. 2 missed Bubs drops on Msushi's side could equalize it. And honestly, that's unlikely, but there's also so many other spots to make up time. But I think I'm getting a bit ahead of myself. We're not even a third of the way through the run yet. There will be 1,000 twists and turns before even we reach the beginning of the summit. Alright, Msushi getting the nice ultra strat for the auto-scroller skip. We'll see. Now, this is interesting because Scrublord is actually the IL world record holder. I believe. I haven't checked in a little bit. I believe he still holds that record. However, his performances in the league in this chapter have not been exceptional. It's kind of an interesting case study in how practicing and grinding IL strats might not really help you in terms of full game runs in the same section that you've been grinding, at least as long as the strats that you're doing are significantly different. And they are. Ridge is one of the few places in the game where there are really savers that is just not considered worth it to go for it in RTA runs yet. Sooner or later though, like this section right here where Scrublord just had to wait for that moving spike block, there is a way to get around it. It's just extremely difficult. And really no runner is incorporating that yet into the full run. Oh, and that's a pretty punishing death there. See if you... Alright, both runners into the final section of Golden Ridge. With face Msushi looking to finish with, what is that, a 2:44? That is a very solid time as well. The league average for that, for Chapter 4 that is a 2:53. Msushi is consistently getting some very good times here, and he's actually on quite good pace. I would imagine certainly 28 pace. Scrublord with a 2:47. He's just consistently finishing these chapters a bit slower than Msushi. He's going to have to play out of his mind to catch up just on skill alone. If Msushi continues to play as well as he is, although that might not bode well. Alright, time for Yeet. The lowest percentage trick that we are tracking in the game, stats-wise. Ah, the reverse commentator's curse, beautiful. The average success rate is only 35% league-wide, although that's up quite a bit from the first couple of weeks when it was only, I believe, less than 20%. And Scrublord has Yote as well. Well done. Alright, Msushi on to Temple B, one of the most exciting parts of the run and home of the most punishing trick in the game, Bubstrop. You probably know that already. If you don't, there is a special sort of screen transition skip in the way where you can skip a huge portion of this chapter, which is what actually makes it faster to do this B side instead of just finishing the A side as intended. Oh no! That is a missed Bubstrop from Msushi. Now that is the kind of mistake that he has not been making so far, and that Scrublord does need to make. Bubstrop can be a great equalizer, although Msushi does get a second try. So Msushi still has a lead, although I wouldn't consider it comfortable, especially because Scrublord just got Bubstrop first try. Very impressive. One thing that it has been cool to watch is the runners continually getting better at Bubstrop over the course of this league. In the first week or so, it was really inconsistent, and so many races were decided largely by this one trick, which I wasn't really a fan of, but the runners have all gotten so much better at it that it's usually not as big of a determiner as it used to be, which I think is a positive thing. Oh no, Scrublord with a very bad death to start off the into the mirror section. Oh, and an even worse death and an inexplicable retry. All that time that he gained from Msushi missing a Bubstrop, I think has just disappeared. That is not the way to start, and another death. That 4 deaths in the first 2 rooms in this section of 5B. That is going to put him at a massive disadvantage going into reflection, assuming Msushi finishes strong here, which he will in likelihood do. In all likelihood. Alright, Msushi. It's possible after all. Alright, pretty clean 5B other than that Bubstrop miss. Was that a 209 on the timer? And the level timer does reset after if you quit out and go back into the chapter, which is what you do if you miss Bubstrop. Yeah, only 2 deaths, really not bad 5B. Not quite as good as his past chapters have been, but it is enough considering the spaghetti that Scrublord dropped at the beginning of the Into the Mirror section. Certainly enough to have a comfortable lead. He started with a comfortable lead, it got close, and now it's back to being pretty comfortable from Msushi going into reflection. Alright, getting lake skip first try, and at 14:59 on the timer, I'm going to watch Scrublord's timer as well when he gets that skip. Should give us an idea of how much time he has to make it up. Now there is certainly precedent for a lead change still occurring in a race like this. I know, I forget exactly who it is, but I'm confident that there was a runner who was 40 seconds ahead going into reflection. Okay, so it looks like, and yeah, Scrublord behind by somewhere in the 30s. He actually looked away when he got lake skip exactly, but I apologize for that. But there was a runner who was 40 seconds ahead going into reflection and lost all of that time. And one thing that we're tracking is the biggest summit comeback as well, which so far is 22 seconds between Tri-Kitty and Melee. So if Scrublord can have a very good reaction, cut 15 or so seconds into that lead, although that's not the way to do it, Scrublord. If he can pull it together and Msushi's deflection isn't stellar, then there's precedent for him being able to make a comeback in Summit. But at this point, I wouldn't bet on it. Making their way through the feathers section. The feathers... oh! Now that was a costly death, and a pretty uncommon one to see at that from Msushi. Just trying to cut the corner and going around those bumpers a little bit too tightly there, and I don't know, can't say for sure that that's what was to blame, but Msushi is a keyboard player, and controlling the feather sections is significantly more difficult as a keyboard player because you don't have that, you don't have an analog stick for omnidirectional movement, and this is the only, and those are the only part in the game where you aren't limited to 8 directional movement. Alright, Msushi getting ready for Battle and Boost, one of the coolest looking parts in the game. Something that the runners have gotten remarkably good on over the years, the months more like. The success rate on Battle and Boost in the league is 85%. So it's fairly rare to see anyone miss it. Oh, okay. Msushi didn't get the optimal strat there. I was worried he was going to get hit by the laser. Avoided it adeptly. Okay, so Scrublord only now coming up off Boost. Even though Msushi has had some bad mistakes, I think Scrublord has kind of matched them so far. So really not looking to be what he... Oh! Interesting. I don't know if that counts as a miss or success on Battle and Boost. I've never quite seen someone die after getting it like that. That's interesting. Anyway, Msushi is blazing through the battle and fight. This boss fight, if you will, in a lot of ways the culmination of the story of the game. Now, if all you've seen of this game are speedruns, which is awesome, I'm glad you like them, there is really a pretty engaging, cool story in this game. And of course, when we're doing it as fast as possible, we're not going to explore the story every time, but it is certainly worth checking out if you're interested. There's a lot of depth to this game, not only from a speedrunning standpoint, but from just an experience overall. Just a great video game. Alright, Msushi's just got a few screens left here at the battle and fight. Scrublord lagging pretty far behind still. There's not a lot that he himself can do to make up the time at this point. Celeste is a game that's based so much on movement and Msushi's movement is absolutely stellar. There's really there's no room for Scrublord to just up his gameplay and pull out this race. It's going to come down to whether or not Msushi can clutch it out. He is not in the Discord call. Runners have the choice of remaining in the video call deafened so that they can track where they are relative to the other player. Neither runner has done that. So they could be watching the restream, or they might just be totally blind. In which case, Msushi may not be too confident in his lead right now, even though it is pretty significant. At this point, Msushi, who was on an excellent pace through 4 chapters, is theoretically could get a 28 still, but it would take an exceptionally good summit from Msushi. His average summit, as Scrublord finishes off Reflection as well, Msushi's average summit time is an 8:46, which would not be good enough to net him a 28 in this case. Yes, and he is already on to 500 meters as Scrublord is only entering Summit. Although one thing to note is that Msushi's Indian timer is about 5 seconds ahead of Scrublord's, so it's really not. The lead is 5 seconds less than it appears. Just not getting the right direction on one of his dashes there. Oh, and not getting the right timing on one of his dashes. That room is the only room where there was a death in TGH's world record for this category. So it's certainly understandable to take a death there. Yeah, and deaths aren't really as telling a statistic about how well a runner is doing than they might immediately seem, because a lot of mistakes can be very significant, but lose more time in a death, but not actually end up with a different time, and some deaths can only cost a couple seconds. But regardless, it's an interesting statistic to look at. And what's interesting to me is that there's still never been a deathless world record in Celeste. I believe at least 2, maybe 3 of TGH's records had 1 death in it, but it still hasn't happened. That elusive deathless run has not happened. Maybe it's happened by someone who specifically sought out to do a deathless run, regardless of strategy, but at a top speedrunning level, not yet. Interesting to see, maybe by 2020 Death Favor to get a record level run in this game. It wouldn't surprise me at all with the rapid rate at which runners are improving at this game, consistently month in, month out. Alright, Msushi into 1500 meters. Okay, gonna take the room reset, get cycle there. And that's the exact kind of thing that runners are usually scared of in 1500 meters. Much like a lot of sections of Resort, it's extremely cycle-based, and deaths can be extremely punishing. More so really here than in any plays in Resort itself. That wasn't one of the worst deaths, but not the cleanest 1500 meters from Msushi at all. We'll see if Scrublord can pick up his time here. He has the opportunity to. Alright, Msushi on to 2000 meters, the return of Golden Ridge mechanic. In my opinion, the most frustrating chapter in the game, but the speedrunners make it look so incredibly easy. Like, you see that wind blowing, it's not soft. That wind is very significant. Oh, Msushi going for it and failing the blockless strat. Gonna go for it again. And kitting it. That is one of the newer additions to the run. It doesn't save too much time, and it's a lot more difficult than the old strategy, but people have become consistent enough at it to start going for it, which I think is insane. Another testament to the rapid improvement that this game has seen, and how the level of consistency that people are able to get with such insanely difficult tricks. Alright, Scrublord on the same section. We'll see. Does not go for the blockless strategy. Respectable decision. Picks up a few seconds on Msushi there. But Msushi is already through with 2000 meters on to 2,500 meters. Oh, fallen out of the key skip room twice. Interesting. Getting key skip though, not like it's especially likely to just miss key skip. That is one of the two unintentional, or excuse me, intentional, not unintentional, intentional deaths that there are in this route. So when I say deathless earlier, I meant as far as intentional deaths go, because there are two places in the run. Sushi missing door skip, not common. That's not a thing that you expect to see too often. Scrublord hitting his second unintentional death. The first one, of course, being Bups drop. So without major route change, which I can't even visualize a way it's possible. Those two deaths are never going to be routed out, and so there'll never be a true deathless run in a top level speedrun of this game. So we can look at unintentional deaths at least. Alright, Msushi on to 3,000 meters right as Scrublord nails door skip. Door skip, like so many things in this run, another example of something that's was seen as prohibitively difficult when it first was really developed, but has ended up becoming quite a common, or like a staple of the run, and not something that people really fail too often. Msushi failing this flag though 3 times. 4 times. Oh man. Okay, gets it on the 5th try. You know, Scrublord, he's still behind, but it's getting closer. It's absolutely getting closer. Oh, but that's not going to help him. Another death from Msushi. This has not only not been the summit that he would need to get, like a 28, it hasn't really been the summit that he needs to guarantee the win. And also his in-game timer pull 13 seconds or so ahead of Scrublord's right now, which means that the lead is actually 13 seconds less than it appears. We use, a death though from Scrublord there. Not gonna help him. Okay, let's see. He's going to touch or skip flag 10 at 28:41. Msushi is. Okay, so Scrublord does still have a lot of time that he would need to make up, but he did get closer. We'll see though. I believe though that Msushi's performance in the earlier tiers was enough in this case to guarantee him the win. Yes, it's about a 17-18 second lead. That certainly has shrank quite a bit, but not enough to change the outcome here in all likelihood. Msushi in the last feather of the game. Into the last flag of the game. He's looking to finish with a 29.4x time. Really not the kind of performance that he would want. I mean, that is a good deal worse of a time than you would even need to guarantee a win against a runner such as Scrublord. What is that? I believe that's 19 deaths. Now, I'm sorry, I not to take away from Msushi's time, 29:45 is an extremely difficult time to get in a race, but he has done better. He knows how to do better. We'll see. All right. And Scrublord looks like a 30.05 or 30.06. 30.05. Yeah, Scrub only losing that one by 20. So it ended up being a very close race. As close as it looked like it would be after Chapter 4. The only difference there was really the 5B from Scrublord. That was where he lost so much time. Alright, I am going to get a glass of water and I'll be right back for the start of the second race. Alright everyone, I am back. So to give you a perspective on how good the run performance was in the first race, the average time for Msushi, I only talked about his best time earlier, the average time that he has is a 29:45. So that is what his performance in that first race is actually exactly what you could expect of him. As they are on to prologue once again. Oh, not sure exactly what happened on Msushi's screen there. Maybe he missed a... Not sure. But that was losing a few seconds in prologue. I'm not a runner myself, so I can't say I know what happened there, but regardless, it's not going to be a huge deal. And Scrublord's average time throughout the race is actually a 30:42, so he overperformed significantly in that first race. He would have had to play very close to his PB to take a win there. So I don't think I gave Msushi quite enough credit for his performance there. I apologize for that. Okay, both runners are, of course, going through the Forsaken City. Looks like Scrublord with kind of a lead that he's built up here in this chapter 1. Not sure, my video froze for a bit, so I'm not sure what exactly happened. But this looks to be a good start from Scrublord. Oh, for sure, that's going to be a 103. I thought it might have been a 102 for. And Msushi with a 103 as well, I believe. Very impressive stuff. So really that lead that I was seeing from Scrublord's side was just those 3 seconds that he picked up in prologue. And they actually kept themselves pretty even throughout that city as well, both of them with stellar times. Alright, we'll see. In the first race, Msushi had a really good old... That's not the start of a good old sight from him this time. He had a really good old sight, and Scrublord faltered a bit. It looks like so far the opposite is true, but we have still got most of the chapter to go. Alright, as both runners are on to the battle and chase sequence, if I remember correctly, Scrublord died a couple times to letting his ghost catch up with him, and had a couple more close calls as well. Wow, it really looks like the lead is still about 3 seconds. If they had had the same prologue, they would have been synced for pretty much the entirety of these first 2 chapters, which would have been really cool to watch. Alright, again, I can't get over how cool all the dream block stuff looks. I'm gonna savor it a bit. Won't see it again for, a whole 23 minutes or so. So long to wait. Alright, and Scrublord into the away section right before Msushi. Looking to be a 140 something time, 147 from Scrublord, very good. 148, 149 from Msushi, can't quite read it, but still pretty solid old sights, both better than the league average right there. Scrublord's especially an improvement on his first race. He's off to a great start. I mean, those were 2 very excellent times in chapters 1 and 2. Now let's see if he can keep it going through chapter 3. This is not how you start. It's not getting the wow. This is some weird stuff from Scrublord here. I've never seen anyone struggle with that strategy to get the key there. What the typical strategy is there is to get a dash refresh from the screen transition and then use it to get up to the key without using the method. But Scrublord just couldn't get the dash refresh. And that's definitely an example of a huge mistake that cost him quite a bit of time. Msushi dashing diagonally when I'm sure he didn't mean to. But that's not going to show up on his death count whatsoever. Really shows how many different mistakes you can make that don't result in death. Which is why paying close attention to the number of deaths isn't the most important thing to do. Anyway, both runners into the huge mess section. Scrublord behind by a significant amount, even though Msushi has not had a fantastic resort so far. Missing an optimal cycle there, but that's really not a big deal. Scrublord getting a better cycle in that room, so he picks up probably about a second there. And I'm getting a little bit of deja vu here. If I remember correctly, this is about exactly where the 2 runners were at this point in the run last game. Alright, perhaps Msushi, I think Msushi has a bit more of a lead this time than he did last time, and we'll see if he can. Well, first he has to make it through Laundry Room, which has some tough rooms in it for sure, but we'll see if he can continue his insane consistency in Demo Dash, or if Scrublord can improve his poor consistency with the trick. Alright, beautiful movement from Sushi there. Alright, and he is into the elevator shaft section right as Scrublord hits the final button and huge mess. Msushi's in-game timer is about 3 or 4 seconds faster, so that's something to keep in mind for now. Alright, Demo Dash, what have you got for us this time? First try for Sushi. Alright, Scrublord. Nope. Alright, second try. In the first race he got it third try, in the second race, second try. So by all logic, in the third race he's going to get it first try, I believe. And for those who don't know, even if Msushi also takes this race, oh, that is a pretty typical Oshiro death. I mean, maybe not in that exact way, but just a slight mistake can lead to pretty big time loss. And another one in the final room of this section. Ooh, and on a weird cycle here. Oh, barely avoids Oshiro at the last second there. That was pretty scary. He finishes with an 806 on the timer overall, and Scrublord finishes with, I think, an 808 or so. 809. So he actually took that lead all the way back to 3 seconds. Scrublord lost a lot of time right at the beginning of the chapter, and Msushi lost a lot of time right at the end, although not quite as much as did Scrublord. Alright, and we're on to Golden Ridge, the chapter that you would expect to be Scrublord's specialty, but right there is an example of the kind of mistakes that he makes in this chapter pretty regularly, even though he is IL record holder. Or, sorry, I can't confidently say that, I haven't checked in a good while, but he has historically been consistently the best, if not one of the best runners of this category, of this chapter. Msushi having to take a retry there, the wind just barely preventing him from getting to that bubble. Alright, Scrublord getting the pretty ultra strat. Alright, Msushi unfortunately not opting for that final auto scroller skip there. One of these days, people are going to start pulling it off in league run. It'll be quite the spectacle to watch. But not quite yet. Not even from Scrublord, who might be one of the best in the world at that specific trick as well due to his IL grind for this chapter. Oh wow, that was some beautiful movement using like an bubble to get more speed on his ultra dashes there. Was Msushi. Very impressive. Oh, I was worried he was going to have to retry that whole room there. Not quite. Alright, solid Golden Ridge. Not perfect Msushi, but solid. Finishing with a 10:54 on the total timer. Whereas Scrub is finishing with an 11:02 or 11:03. So he is looking at 8 or 9 second deficit at the moment. That is, I believe that's less than he was down by going into Temple previously. We'll see if he can clean up his 5. He'll be neck and neck. I mean, they really are neck and neck now. But there will be no difference between them if my prediction comes true, that Scrublord will have a bit of a cleaner temple this time. Alright, both runners yeeted quite well in the last race. Beautiful. Not so beautiful, missing the button from Scrublord. Trying to go a bit too fast. Count it. Sushi already into the tape room, so he's having 5A section. We'll see. Oh wow, that is a 1:10. The best time that we've seen so far is a 1:00 from Flitterby, and I believe a couple others. Flitterby was the first to get it though. So Msushi will extend his lead so far by 8 whole seconds or 7 seconds-ish, just in the A-side section of Temple here. Alright, Msushi in the Bubs Drop room. He missed it once in the first race. Can he get it first try? Absolutely. Now the pressure is on Scrublord to stay within arm's reach of Msushi. Absolutely needs to get this first try. And he does. Very well done. Alright, Msushi. Oh no, that's about the worst death you can have. That almost equalized them. If not, I think it might have, actually. Oh, not quite. But, wow. Dying at the end of that room, I don't really remember seeing that. And that is a massive time loss from Msushi. And Scrublord is he's right back there. Msushi does get the optimal Seeker drop there, so does Scrublord. And given that Msushi's in-game timer right 3 seconds ahead, the difference between them is really only a few seconds. And yet, Celeste is a somewhat rare example. Speed game which still uses in-game time. That's because the built-in speedrun timer for this game is pretty accurate and extremely convenient to use. There are some slight inaccuracies that it has with regards to RTA, and it doesn't run in between chapters. Scrublord, be careful! Be careful! Okay. He gets through that. A time loss, but not as bad as it could have been. Once you get thrown off your groove in those Seeker rooms, it can become very, very easy to take quick death. Msushi with a 2:39, maybe it looked like. I'm having trouble reading the IL timers right now. So ever since that that awful death at the start of the Into the Mirror section, Msushi did gain a little bit of extra time as well since then. But Scrublord did, in fact, clean up his 5B. There's not a huge difference between them. It'll really come down to who just straight up don't need any mistakes from either player, who can play cleaner in Reflection and Summit. Of course, that is not an easy task. Those two chapters combined take up almost half of the length of the run. Msushi, though, getting off to a bad start in this section, missing Lake Skip once and twice, and not 3 times. Third try Lake Skip on Msushi. Could have been worse. Scrublord missing it first try as well. Second try. And Msushi making his way through the feathers very well. He had a couple mistakes, major mistakes with feathers in the last race in Reflection, and I don't know if I can chalk that up to it being more difficult to do the feathers on keyboard, but it's something definitely to watch for the remainder of this chapter. If he can be consistent with the more difficult control scheme for the feather movement. So it looks like Msushi has maybe a 15-second lead or so. Just kind of eyeballing it there. And 15 seconds, I believe, is about as much time Scrublord made up in his summit. Alright, Msushi coming up on a couple screens right before the boss fight here. The room with lots of developer-intended shortcuts, but that doesn't make them easy. A lot of runners you'll see miss those even though that they were completely intended. Kind of that tricky. Making his way through the brief water section. At one point in the development of this game, the entirety of this level was going to be a water section. So, thankfully, I think I can speak for most people who played this game in that we are pretty glad that they decided to scrap that and just have this short little corridor be filled with water instead of the whole chapter. But in retrospect, it would be kind of cool to see what strategies the runners of this game could come up with for a situation like that. Scrublord getting Battle and Boost and not dying right after this time. Saving some time over his past self. Ooh, a death though in one of the first battle screens. Oh, I really thought Scrublord was getting lasered there. As dramatic and intimidating as the hitbox really isn't that big. So unless you end up right in its path, you're probably safe. Another additional thing that makes this fight actually a little bit easier than it is are those little bubbles that Battle and Shoot. They don't actually get their own hitbox until they're kind of far away from Battle and Sprite itself. So often you'll see runners just kind of go through them. They haven't materialized yet, so to speak. Alright, so Msushi got through that room with all the 1831, or 1931, excuse me. We'll see, I'll be watching for... Oh yeah, Scrublord is still behind by quite a bit. Yeah, by over 20 seconds. So he's actually lost over the course of this reflection. Not incredibly surprising, as Msushi final screen of the battle and fight, and no issues whatsoever. Just about ready to get his final dash, or his second dash. Definitely one of the coolest game design choices of the many that there are in this game. The ability to get a second dash for the final chapter. It really just allowed them to put so many more features into that final chapter that really test your abilities and your strength at the core mechanics of the game. I really can't say enough about how well this game was designed. So that was only a one death reflection I think I saw from Msushi. So good start. And he enters Summit on a worse pace than he did last time, but if he has even an average Summit to his standards, he can beat his time from the first race. And once again, Scrublord is finding himself with a deficit that is not impossible to overcome, but will take a monumental effort, and will probably need a little bit of help from Msushi as well. And by help, I mean, you know, if Msushi fails to play perfectly, that's kind of what Scrublord would need, because he is a whole 500 meters behind right now. That is a lot of time to make up in just this one chapter. Oh, and that's not the way to start. A 0 meter death from Scrublord. To be fair, I don't think we know for sure that this first section of Summit is actually at 0 meters. I think that's kind of questionable for me. Usually mountains don't just, you know, the base of them isn't usually at sea level if they're not right on the ocean. Some questionable geology there. Alright, Msushi going through the biggest dream block, the long-awaited return of the dream block. And one extra bit of tech that you'll notice in this section of Summit is the ability for the runners to hyperdash out of the dream blocks to gain just a little bit of extra speed. And the way you can tell if they've pulled it off is if Madeline's hair is red when she comes out of the other side. If it is, then they got that hyperdash off, get that just a little extra speed. Just one of those tiny movement optimizations. This game's so engaging to watch for so many people. Alright, Msushi on to 1500 meters. I used to hear a lot of people claim that this was the hardest part of the run, the 1500 meter section, but it seems that opinions on that have kind of shifted recently. I've heard some runners say, you know, it's really not even the hardest section of Summit, in my opinion. And I'm not sure if that's just that these people really always had these opinions and now they're being more vocal about it, or if it's another example of a shift in consistency from the runners that make the strats in this level actually a lot more viable than, you know, maybe they were at first. There's so many examples of that. It's fascinating to see how the different areas of difficulty in this game evolve. You can go from different chapters at different times had the notoriety of being the hardest part, and I think that's fascinating to watch develop over time. I apologize if I'm being a little bit quiet. I have some sleeping roommates in the room right next to me, so I don't want to be too loud. And I'm also pretty tired myself, but how could I sleep when I have an exciting competitive speedrunning match to watch? Alright, right as Scrublord is beginning 2000, and Msushi is finishing it. He has had, it looks like, a lot cleaner of a summit than he had last time. So, I mean, if Scrublord really wanted to pull out a victory, it's not looking like this will be the race. He just hasn't quite put enough good chapters together to really challenge Msushi and scare him into doing well. That said, Scrublord was a lot better than his average time in the first race, and Msushi was right at his. So that could bode well for a third race in Scrublord if he continues to play above his average and Msushi continues to play at his average. There's a lot of room for him to potentially pull off an upset. Now, Msushi actually did miss door skip in the first race. Oh, no curse there. Getting door skip as well. The average league success rate in door skip so far is, sorry, give me a sec here, 87%. So runners have gotten so incredibly good at skip, much better than people could have possibly imagined when it was first starting to be included into the run. I distinctly remember TGH calling it a bad meme to go for door skip. I think he's certainly changed his tune on that a bit, to the point where you don't even really think about door skip too much. Unless you're me and are constantly looking for things to talk about. Anyway, Scrublord giving it his shot, making it as well. Gotta work to get that league success rate up to 90%. That would be pretty cool to see. Alright, Msushi making his cleanly passing the flag which gave him so much trouble in the first race. The summit is looking really good. I'm pretty impressed by what his improvement here in what was his worst performance out of any chapter in the first race. Not sure. It could be that he was especially cognizant of how subpar his summit was in the previous race. Looks like we're getting a sync here. Okay, yes, we're getting a sync. I was worried after I said that the stream, it just froze, but we're getting a sync. Thanks to the restreamer. Thanks, Tease, for all your hard work. We appreciate it. Getting us those hot syncs. And Msushi into the last flag here. Like that whole section right there that Msushi just passed. That kind of stuff is only possible because of that second dash that the developers decided to give. And it looks so smooth. There's just so many different movement options that you get with a second dash, and it was such a great... You know what I mean. I talked about it before. Which is also why I am not a huge fan of the gimmick of core, which you can't refresh your dash except with a dash crystal. or a dash or a screen transition. But anyway, we're not going to talk about the core in this race because this is any percent. If we see one day an A or all chapters race on this channel, then we can talk about core. Alright, Msushi is going to finish this off with a fantastic time here, improving his first race time by about 40 seconds. I think. Oh, it's really hard for me to read. Of course, it's perfect. 29:05. Excellent time from Msushi. That's only about 10 seconds league best. So that is the performance that we know that he's capable of, and that I'm sure he wants to be able to give every time. Alright, and Scrublord is looking to finish off very similar time to his first race. In fact, I think the exact same time, a 30:05, right? Is that what I saw? Yeah. Interesting. The pinnacle of consistency, Scrublord, although fortunately didn't quite have the performance that he needed to. Msushi was kind of, his race this time was a lot better than you could expect Scrublord to overcome. But a 30:05 as well. He is significantly lowering over the course of this race, and he has one more opportunity to do so. Msushi will take the second race, and with it, an extra point. But Scrublord will have one final to get a point on the board as well. We'll take probably a couple more minutes, and then we'll get started on that third race. Yeah, so Msushi really improved on his biggest spots of trouble that he had in the first race, whereas Scrublord kind of had a bit of a repeat performance. I mean, literally, yes, a repeat performance at the exact same time, but he seemed to lose most of his time in about the same places as well. So consistency there, but maybe not the kind he wants. Alright, looks like the runners are just about ready to get started on this third race of the day. This will be the final race for between these two for today, but we still have more competitive speedrunning action later on today, I believe. Shouldn't make promises before I actually check. Yes. First off, we have Kopitz versus Momo in the 70-star lead, and followed by 2 Mario Kart Double Dash, Battle for Bikini Bottom, and capping off the day with a 16-star race. So we have lots of action coming to you on this Thursday, February 14th. Glad you could join us, and we are off. In both races so far, we've actually seen a significant, as in more than a second lead difference coming out of prologue. Really not something you see at all, if I would say hardly ever. This time, though, it looks like the difference is no more for a third of a second. That is usually, in nearly all cases, what prologue is. In a race setting, anyway. Although Msushi is one of the people who's taken a prologue so far in this league, so it is possible. Just take some time to soak in the cleanness of their city movement. So nice to look at. No mistakes of note so far. Both runners getting these typical strategies here and making it look, well, I don't want to say they make it look easy. It looks pretty hard what they're doing, but they make the smoothness of it look so easy, is what I'm kind of thinking of. Msushi with, oh man, I can't quite read the timer there, but both of them with pretty good cities. Maybe not quite as good as their double 103s in the last race, but still very solid start for both of them as they go on to Old Site. Both runners leaping right through those dream blocks. If it wasn't made clear, and I don't know, I'm not sure if you can really tell with the cutscene skip. This whole first section of Old Site of Chapter 2 is sequence. None of this is real, which is kind of an odd thing, though, in the context of the game. For example, the dream blocks, which are not present in this chapter once Madeline wakes up. The dream blocks do appear in several other parts in the game. So is that to say that those parts of the game are also a dream? Or, I don't know, I don't want to get too into the whole it's all a dream theories, because those are usually lazy. But I don't know, man. There's a little bit of evidence here. So when you play this game for the first time and you meet here the other part of you, Babylon, you do so in this chapter, and when you get through it, you think, oh, it's okay. That was just a bad dream. I won't have to deal with her again. But obviously not the case. She is the main antagonist throughout the entire story, initially introduced as a dream character. It's really an interesting choice. It shows that it's pretty symbolic, you know. Something I hadn't really thought before, kind of vocalizing it right. How that kind of affects your perception of the character and what it means to then have that character introduced in a dream continue to persist, you know, tangibly, as you go on through the game. Anyway, Msushi has gained a bit of a lead here, not a lot, just like the first two races, really. There is not a ton of a difference here, really. Msushi slowly pulling ahead with slightly more optimal movement and slightly fewer mistakes. But Scrublord holding his own. Will it be enough? remains to be seen. Now, remember, mathematically, and I promise this isn't any sort of fallacy at all, Scrublord is due for a first try demo dash. The first race, it was third try. The second race, it was second try. So 3, 2, 1, and this should be a first try demo dash. Struggling a bit with that coin key room though is Scrublord. Msushi with beautiful huge mass movement. In a game that feels like it was built so naturally for speedrunning, this whole room that you see Scrublord in right now feels like it was built to be opposed to speedrunning. It's so hard to get through these tight spaces while maintaining that quality of movement that is present in everywhere else on the run. And top runners have been able to do it, but it can be kind of painful to watch sometimes when they're really struggling to get those hypers in the right exact way, and including some reverse hypers and ultras that I've seen and some of the more advanced strategies for that room. Anyway, Msushi's looking to have a fairly lead here. Although the about 8 RTA only and not represented in in-game time, which of course is the true determiner of who wins. But whereas in the first race, where Msushi and Scrublord were always kind of in the same area, same time, although Msushi had a slight lead. At this time, Msushi is a whole laundry section ahead right now, minus 8 seconds. And for those of you that are just tuning in, the score is 2-0 in Msushi's favor. We will have that updated for you pretty quick. So this is the final of the 3 races and first try demo dash from Msushi. Almost talked right over it. So he is 3 for 3 on demo dash today. That's going to improve his overall percentage pretty significantly. Coming into this race, he was at 52% across the league in demo dash, meaning really he would average about 1 fail per race. But over 3 races today, he had 0 fails. Oh, and my completely mathematical prediction failed. That's 3 fails already for Scrublord. Alright, 4th try. So it was 3, 2, 4. I'm just not seeing a pattern there. Maybe that's because there isn't one. Alright, Msushi with a very good resort. Was that a 420? I wish I actually... The video quality isn't quite good enough for me to read the IL timers right now, unfortunately. But I do know that that was a very good... and Msushi goes into Chapter 4 with an even bigger lead than he had in the other 2 races going into the same chapter. So he has improved consistently over the course of the set, whereas Scrublord has stayed about the same, and potentially in this race, not even giving as good of a performance as his first 2. Yep, that is going to be quite a lot of time already that Scrublord is behind. Oh, Msushi with a couple deaths here. Those clouds can be quite awkward to get the right movement off of. You really want to get some hypers, but they're the way they move. They bounce, of course, when you land on them. So you kind of time it right in a different way than you normally do to get the same dash off of them. It can be pretty tricky. beautiful ultra dash auto scroller script. Auto scroller skip. Say that 5 times fast when you're tired. I've been talking for 2 hours. And I might have to again. Scrublord will be coming up on that section pretty soon. Not opting, you know, I'm just going to keep saying it until they do it, not opting for the insanely difficult optimal auto scroller skip there was Msushi. We'll see. Maybe if Scrublord knows that he is at a deficit here, he might, you know, maybe in some universe he goes for it. Might be this one, we don't know yet. Yeah, just kind of filled with these unfortunate deaths. Has this run been so far from Scrublord? Oh, careful! It's always dangerous to have a little bit of extra slowdown in these in the rooms in this final section of ridge here. Because the snowball cycles, while not RNG at all, if you get off a little bit, suddenly you're like, oh, well, wait, where's it gonna be? I'm not exactly sure. When's it gonna come? So Msushi finishing up Golden Ridge, while Scrublord is just getting started on the final section. Count it. That was trying to go faster than he needed to there from the Scrublord. I'm not sure. He might be watching the restream. He is not in the video call, as I mentioned earlier, and neither runner is. They have the option of remaining in the Discord video call to see where they are relative to the other runner. I know it's kind of there's a somewhat big divide between the racers of what's the best strategy there. If you know you're ahead, it can make you more nervous than you should be. But if you know, you can also kind of alter your strategies based on if you're ahead or behind to give yourself the best chance at winning. Oh, Msushi not quite getting yeet as Scrublord finishes up Golden Ridge. So it's looking to be about a 30-40 second deficit. Oh, not quite that much. No, I think that's actually about right. Yeah, 40 seconds. Now, if Msushi were to miss Bubs 4 times, well, then we'd have a game on our hands. But well, we'll just leave it up to Sushi. Oh, Scrublord with 2 deaths here. Not what you want to see. You hate to see it, folks. That's 3 deaths already in this A section, and he is not going to be happy about that. Alright, Msushi coming up. Oh, I spoke a little too soon. Was coming up on Bub's Drop, is now again coming up on Bub's Drop. Gets the first try. So he is 3 for 4 on attempts so far, as Scrublord misses heat, unfortunately. He's 3 for 4 on attempts in this matchup. So 75% success rate on Bub's Drop overall is pretty good. That's definitely what you want. Losing an out across all 3 races, that means only loss of 3 seconds to the trick over the optimal method. As Scrublord is only now collecting the tape in 5A, he is just bleeding time consistently. And Msushi is already on to into the mirror section. Now, as has continued to occur, Msushi's in-game timer is significantly ahead of Scrublord's. That's because the in-game timer for the game does not run in between chapters, so runners really have as much time as they want within reason to take a small break, catch their breath, before they go on to the next chapter. Alright, Scrublord, Bubs drop. Yes. So he's 3 for 3. 100% success rate is even better, some would say, than a 75% success rate. So even though the lead is still very significant, it is actually 15-16 seconds less than it appears on screen because of that in-game time difference, because of Scrublord's tendency to take more time in between chapters than the Msushi. Unfortunately, this room right here is impossible, so that'll kill the... Oh. Okay, well. Very cool. Oh, spoke too soon there. Pretty costly death from Msushi in this room, but really not a huge deal considering the rest of his performance in chapter was very good. He's going to finish 5B with, what is that? A 1430 maybe I'm seeing on the timer? So he is potentially on pace. Oh, Scrublord, can it... Getting the save there. Caught the dash refresh from bouncing on the Seeker, I believe, when the Seeker could easily have killed him instead. You know, Msushi hasn't been great at lake skip so far. I think he's missed it at least once every time. Not a huge time loss, of course. Lake skip is interesting. It's been in the run for quite a while, but it doesn't seem that runners are getting super good at it in the way that they got other more difficult things down almost completely within a couple months of them being incorporated. I'm not sure what it is about lake skip that prevents people from getting super consistent at it. No runner has 100% success rate on lake skip so far in this league, which is surprising considering that there is a runner success rate on demo dash, which is, most people would say, is significantly more difficult. Be interesting. Maybe one day speedrunning will be, popular enough that there will be, teams of scientists dedicated to figuring out why can't people get consistent at lake skip. Although there are probably some more interesting questions to ask about this game than that. Anyway, Scrublord finished off 5B, still behind by a bit. Although again, I would watch the in-game timer. That difference between the in-game timer actually shrunk a bit now, but and we're getting a sync as well. Thanks, Mystery Streamer. Oh, or maybe Msushi's screen has frozen. Or no, I'm sorry. I was misreading the timers is what was happening. So the difference was actually 10 seconds more than I thought it was. My bad. So have a look. Okay, so at that cutscene skip, right before this case sequence here, Msushi was at a 1651. Going through the water section. The vestigial aspect, that water section could be considered a vestigial trait of chapter 6 here. a remnant of what a function it used to have, like the little leg bones on a snake. You know, and I couldn't think of a weird. So, can you tell I'm a bit tired? But I think it's kind of a fair comparison. So Msushi's pretty significantly into the battle and fight already. His lead is now continued to grow. His performance here is really what we should focus on. Msushi, maybe the runner who has had, I wouldn't say he's underperformed, because he's done very well in his top half for sure. But considering that within the last couple of months he's been as high as second on the leaderboards, I think people were expecting maybe a little bit more. But he's certainly shown today that he's brought it today. Despite a shaky first race, he keeps on getting better and better as the day goes on. Scrublord taking the strategy to get a checkpoint in this shortcut room. Wastes 1 or 2 seconds, but if you were to die, it would waste a lot more than that. So, but Scrublord dying in the water section. And that is why we don't want the whole level to be. And the way water works in this game, we don't really have to be too far underwater for too much. You know, Scrublord getting battle and boost. You don't really get a chance to be underwater too long. But you get instant dash refreshes. Ooh, painful death from Msushi there. That's gonna hurt his for sure. I think he still probably has. It's within the realm of possibility to get PB here, but it's gonna be really tight. I think, though, on the other hand, that is probably out of the question for Scrublord at this point, unless he were to pull out Summit IL record, getting that elusive sub-8 summit. I'm not sure what the opinion of the community is, if a sub-8 summit is possible at all. I mean, I'm assuming one day it will be, but if it's possible to happen right now, I think someone said that Derby has gotten an 807 summit, perhaps. I think that's the right. So in order to get a league PB, Msushi would have to get. He was at 2024, so he would have to get a. Give me 1 second here while I pull up my fancy spreadsheet. So if he gets anything below an 830 summit, that would be a league for Msushi. And well, that's kind of a tough ask. It's also not impossible at all. Oh, sorry, I just lost the feed there for a second, but I'm right back. Meanwhile, Scrublord is making his way through the battle and fight. It just wasn't quite in the cards for Scrublord today. We'll see how he finishes off this race, though. If he has a very smooth ending to Reflection and Summit, then that is certainly could be a confidence booster going into the next week. No, I haven't seen too much of Msushi's Summit so far. I apologize for missing that, but I'll definitely be rooting for him to league PB here. That's. Let's see, we need that sub 830, and Msushi is very capable, but again, that is pretty difficult. Alright, Scrublord clearing one of the longest rooms in the battle and fight. This battle and fight has looked pretty good, but that is to say, most at any given time of Scrublord's performance has looked pretty good. It's just been peppered with these small mistakes that have cost him a lot of time here. So Msushi already into 1,000 meters. Playing with my beloved Dream Block. Alright, so, you know, Scrublord still can get a race PB if he gets that sub 7 summit. You know, maybe he's been hoarding some strategy that allows him to skip 500 meters, but that's pretty unlikely. In any case, Msushi is blazing his way through these dream blocks. I don't think I've seen him miss a hyper out of it yet. Although I'm sure he probably missed a couple when I was watching Scrublord finishing off Reflection. You know, he's into 1500 meters. His pace, it looks good. I mean, I've been looking at Scrublord's screen as well, so I might have missed a couple deaths, but it looks like he's been consistent so far. As we get a little mini sync going, and we'll be synced up for the remainder of this race now that we are in the final chapter. Yeah, I mean, this 1500 meters, it's good. This is what you want from this very difficult section of the run. Now, I might be speaking a little prematurely here. He has yet to clear or even reach the Oshiro section. Ooh, Scrublord with a death there in 500 meters. As Msushi is... Oh, interesting. That was a death that he had earlier. I forget if it was in the first or second race, but he definitely did that exact death before. That's definitely not enough to kill the league PB for Msushi here, but does put him at quite a bit of a disadvantage. When you're looking at a sub 830 summit, you're not, well, you can maybe afford 2 or 3 deaths, but certainly no more. It's kind of interesting to see. It happens very frequently that a runner will make a death and you think, wow, that's kind of odd. You don't normally see people die there. And then they'll do the exact same thing in a subsequent race. Oh, Msushi getting this the blockless strategy there. First try, as Scrublord goes right into the spikes on top of that dream block. And, you know, it's kind of odd. You don't see runners of this caliber simply misdirect their dashes too often, as Msushi takes one of the least costly deaths that you can. You really don't see people misdirect their dashes too often, because if you're using a D-pad or arrow keys on a controller, it's not too hard to very consistently get those diagonal dashes. But I've seen Scrublord, it would take me 2 hands to count all the times that I've seen him just go in the wrong direction. Diagonal when he shouldn't, or straight when he should have diagonal. So I wonder what's going on. Myself personally, when I played through this game, it was on a Switch Pro controller with the analog stick. Oh, Scrublord, and that is the 1500 death that that is typical, but that you never want to see. Ooh, just barely missed getting that cycle there. Msushi on to key skip, getting that second intentional death. It's kind of surprising to me that given keeping the key even after you retry the stage, that it's not more useful in other parts of the run. Previously, there were 2 different sections where you would retry once reaching the key and then go from there. But the section that was in Chapter 3 where you did that was removed due to Demo Dash. But just about right after Demo Dash was incorporated into the run, Upstrop was discovered, which got the number of intentional deaths in the route right back up to 2. Scrublord, though, with the most important victory of there. As Msushi is on to 3,000 meters, I don't know. He might be able to do it. I should look up what the average time for the 3,000 meter section is, but given that he's only at 26:30 now, I think he can beat his league PB. That's not going to help, though. Can't have more than... Maybe can't even make a mistake like that again if he's looking for a league PB. His PB, again, is 28.54 in the league's bar. His real PB is somewhere in the 28-20x range. So there's quite a bit of disparity there. Meanwhile, Scrublord in 2,000 meters. At one point, he was 1,500 meters behind. Wow, only 1,000 meters. So if the mountain went up to 10,000 meters, maybe time to catch up, but as it stands now, probably not. Alright, sorry I had to step away for just a second here, but I'm off Scrublord with multiple deaths in that 2,500 meter room. Not looking great. I think maybe he just got a little bit worn out after those first two races. It's something we've seen pretty often. Well, actually it's kind of hard to say. I'd be interested to really look at the data and figure out if whether or not people's third race performance is usually better or worse than their average over the first two races. It seems like some people, like Msushi is here, are kind of energized, and it's looking. I don't think it's possible for him to get that, but that's all right. Still, a stellar performance from Msushi, really making no question here after the first. Following the first race, which looked to look pretty shaky, but making no doubt about it in these last two races that he should be considered among the top runners and a contender for pace. Oh, and I think if it wasn't sealed already, that buries it. No league PB from him to this race, but still going to be a very low 29, barring some unprecedented disaster on 5-1. Alright, it's looking like 29-11, I think, maybe. 29-11. Alright, that's going to improve his league average quite a bit as well. So really, his performance here is even better than you could statistically expect of him. It really shows, again, like all the other runners in this league, how much he's improving over time. Scrublord, though, having not the race of his life here. It's probably going to be a 31 as well, so not even a 30, probably more than a minute slower than his first two races. And that's kind of been the issue with Scrublord so far. Let me go. I'm going to take a quick field trip to my spreadsheet. Msushi's standard deviation for his times is 42 seconds, whereas Scrublord's, oh, well, I spoke too soon, is only 39. So in reality, Scrublord has actually been more consistent to his average than has Msushi over the course of the league. Alright, we're into single-digit flags for Scrublord here. Alright, into the final room of Celeste. You could say that he's probably been here before. Or is this the final room? Maybe not. I forget exactly where the transition is. Yes, I think. So yeah, looking to be a low to mid 31 for Scrublord here. Now this one will probably be above his league average. Well, probably it will be above his league average of around a 30-42 coming into this race. So, but he still lowered his average considering his performance in the first two races. He gets a 31-23, I think. Timer runs for a bit after the fade out there. 31-23. with a 9-minute flat summit. You know, it could have been better, but really, I think he should be proud of his performance, and Msushi showed up today 100%. All right, we waiting to see if the runners are gonna give an interview real quick. All right, looks like Msushi has to go real quick, so he won't be joining for an interview, but Scrublord will for just a bit. Wow, I just noticed Msushi 14
Hello?
unintentional deaths with a 29:11. That's a pretty good timing. Oh, and we have hello Scrublord. How are you feeling?
Not so good after that last run, but
Yeah,
it
I
didn't go
mean,
horribly though, so whatever.
your first 2 races were really good, and how did you react when you got the exact same time on that second race?
Oh man, I did not expect that at all. I mean, it's good, it's consistently fine, but could have done better in each. Like, I had some pretty big problems at one point in each of those first 2 runs.
Yeah,
But, I mean, overall they were fine though.
yeah, you did. You lowered your average time for the league pretty significantly over the course of these 3 races. So nice job.
Yeah, thanks.
And yeah, anything that stood out to you about that, or something maybe you should work on, or something you were proud of?
Something to work on. I guess chapter 3. I know there's a bunch of stuff I could be doing better there, and yeah, to cut off a bunch of time, and then just to get like more consistent, get deaths down, because I feel like the deaths were scattered throughout, especially in the last one.
Yeah.
But yeah.
One positive thing that you've shown like great consistency at Bubstrop in the league so far. Is there any particular method that you have for that, or does it just come naturally?
I mean, I just tapped the button.
Yeah.
I don't know. I guess I have an easier time tapping for less frames than other people. I don't know.
That's actually it's interesting. Kind of like how I know in some games where you have to have like a 1-frame tap. Some people just get it and some don't.
Yeah, it's like that. I know. I just find it easier. I don't really spend as much time on it.
Cool. Well, it was great to watch. Both you and Sushi pulled out some great performances, and excited to see you in the coming weeks.
Yeah, thanks for the commentary.
No problem. All right, I think we're gonna wrap up. Don't go anywhere though, audience. We are getting right into some Super Mario 64 action. If I remember correctly, it's a 70-star race right after that, right after this, and then we have races right up until the end of the day. We finish off with a 16-star race between Paracuzia and Aki. So, got lots of action to go.
All right. See ya.
See you, Scrublord.